two interesting aspects that I've discovered amongst these books that kind of that we can find in products by many different types of publishing institutions. Describe this for a moment, wrap it up with some just sort of my observations of why I think this is important, and then we can have a little Q&A. First of all, we're very considerate about copyright nowadays, right? It's very difficult, especially with digital media, and it looks like now any of us who have published anything with a press, our work is now going to be fed into some kind of large language model eventually, and will come back to bite us. We're concerned about copyright. Buddhists were concerned about copyright as well, but in a different way. Many of these books contain within them explicit instructions and invitations for the readers to reproduce and reprint it themselves. The message was not, don't reprint this. The message was, please reprint this, right? 欢迎印制, 欢迎翻印, right? I love this one because it incorporates the Buddhist swastika at the same time, right? You are invited, we invite you to make copies, to reprint this, to recopy this, okay? Many of these, not all, but many of these are explicitly published under an open copyright. We can think of this as kind of similar to the contemporary GPL or Creative Commons. They're inviting people to reprint it. Now, this is normally the case for those books that are produced through donations or by not-for-profits. There's a lot of commercial publishers and commercial presses at this time who add the standard copyright restrictions onto their books. So it's not the genre that makes the difference, it's the people behind it, it's the publishers that make the difference in terms of what they choose to tell their readers. But as you can imagine, the Buddhist teachings, especially the ones in circulation in East Asia, contain within them explicit teachings saying, if you take these teachings and tell other people and reproduce it and get the word out to others, that is meritorious and that is a good act. And that extends even to these printed works. You are welcomed, you're invited to take this work and make additional copies of it, spread it out and get it out to as many people as possible. They're not trying to keep these secret, they're trying to get it out to as many readers as they can. Okay, that's the first bit. The other bit is this, this fund. This is a really interesting organization. So this was set up by the Buddhist Studies Press. That was the for-profit one I mentioned before, that eventually had this enormous network of local distributors by the mid-1930s. They advertise and start to solicit donations for what they call the Book Printing Merit Fund. And it was active for about 4 years or so. It was founded by many of the people who were running the press and on the board of directors. In its first 6 months, it raised 6,000 yuan, and by December 1931, it reached its goal of having a total capitalization of 10,000 yuan. Now, to give you a bit of perspective, a large company in Shanghai at the time was expected to have a capitalization of at least 10,000 yuan. That would be a kind of a large major company that would probably also be listed on the Shanghai stock market. This is a Buddhist press, right? Quite a niche topic. And they are raising through donations 10,000 yuan within the space of about a year or so. The aim for this, though, was to set up what we would nowadays call a kind of endowment. The idea being that you don't donate the money for us and then we spend it on books and then it goes and leaves and disappears. You donate money to us. We deposit it in a bank. And then we take the interest every month from that money that's deposited in the bank, and we spend the interest only on meritorious works, on printing books, distributing books out there on Buddhist topics. So just like today, you have this endowment, you have a donation of some kind. You don't touch the principal, but you use the interest year by year to indefinitely continue to do meritorious acts. This is a Buddhist group in the early 1930s that are doing precisely that. Okay, it raised a modest amount of money, but it seems like just such a very modern way of thinking about things, a very modern way of approaching the whole notion of funding something, funding a charitable act, that I was very surprised to see it among this group of Buddhists. But at the same time, it's important to remember, nearly all of these organizations were run by lay Buddhists, not by monastics. And lay Buddhists are not full-time Buddhists. They have jobs. They have a day job that gets them income. They're not like monastics where they're dedicated to religion all the time. Many of these people, many of the heads of the publishers, the people who sat on the board of directors, had day jobs in industries, right? In these kind of day-to-day industries. One of the major founders of one of the scriptural presses had a day job at a cement industry in Tianjin. So these are people who understand accounting, who understand business practices. They understand the modern nature of finance, and they can take these ideas and adapt them to Buddhist ends. Introduced innovation into here in really interesting ways, and in ways that I imagine did not always sit well with the people of the time. This is a very different donation model compared to gathering together donations for one project. That project is finished and then it's done. Okay? So an interesting bit of innovation that you can see here as well.